New figures from the Road Safety Authority show that 15 cyclists in Clare were seriously injured in road traffic collisions between 2021 and 2025, with a further 1,300 taking place nationwide in that timeframe. The RSA says the findings of the report will feed into a wider survey that's been launched at the moment that will better understand the circumstances behind cycling collisions across Ireland and aim to inform future policy measures. To reflect on this, I'm joined now on the line by Tiernan of Better Ennis and Paul Murphy, Mayor of Clare and keen cyclist. Ciarán and Paul, both very welcome to the programme.
Morning, Daragh.
Ciarán, I may start with you here. Better Ennis has been campaigning for some time for RSA to release more statistics about road traffic collisions. Now we have this report on cyclist collisions. Look, 15 people in Clare seriously injured over the last 4 years, just going about their day cycling. Are you surprised at that?
I suppose I'm not surprised, really. I'm someone who cycles every day and I can see the dangers on our roads. So, unfortunately, the statistic doesn't surprise me, no.
Paul Murphy, Mayor of Clare, 15 cyclists seriously injured on Clare's roads in the last 4 years. Is that something that I suppose shocks you like Ciarán? Are you disappointed to hear that figure?
You would, of course, Daragh, but look, I guess it's a figure, it is a statistic, it's factual. Okay, I'm a leisure cyclist. I wouldn't be out on the bike every single day like Ciarán. Ciarán goes from A to B. He goes about his daily business, or a lot of it on the bike, whereas I cycle for leisure. So it's kind of comparing two different types of cycling in a way. Predominantly mine would be out the countryside, but we do touch around the verges of town to get to our destinations as well. But look, you see, I guess, near misses on a continual basis, but I'd never have been aware of what the figures were. So look, it is a concern, but it's good to see them published as well, because without those figures being published, you don't really get the data that's required to address those issues and those concerns, Daragh.
Ciarán, you mentioned it doesn't surprise you from what you see when you're on the road yourself every day. Are you more so combating poor driver behaviour, or does road design and conditions in some places leave a bit to be desired as well?
I think it's probably a mix of everything. When you look at the report, you can see it segmented across different groups in the country, and I suppose you can see 50 kilometre per hour roads, that the figures for fatalities on those roads are actually very, very high. The fatalities for where people are cycling on straight roads are very, very high. It's quite often, I suppose, it's down to road design, it's down to driver behaviour. But I suppose the positive thing is that because this data is reasonably detailed, hopefully it can help the RSA to direct some change in driver behaviour and road infrastructure, and I suppose road rules as well.
From a safety piece, these are serious injuries, which, we're not talking about sprains, bumps, bruises. We're talking about broken legs. We're talking about broken limbs. We're talking about anything below fatal. In some cases, these can be life-changing.
Yeah.
When you're, I suppose, when in Better Ennis, you're going out on the road for maybe a cycle together or anything, we know all the safety advice of wearing your high vis, wearing your helmet. Is there anything that you try to hammer home to, I suppose, your members, to cyclists, just to be extra vigilant on the roads? I mean, is there anything you've become extra wary of in recent years?
I suppose the wider the road is, the more likely cars are to go at a very high speed or at the higher end of the limit. So on some of the wider roads, that's possibly where you might feel safer, let's say, because you have a hard shoulder, but then also cars are probably travelling quicker. There's nothing that we would really try to hammer home. I suppose I'm someone who'd encourage people to cycle, and I think, cycling has so many benefits for our community, for our economy, I guess, for people's mental health, that I don't really want to be seen to kind of put impediments in the way of that. But I think, when people do go out and cycle, it's like cycling's an inherently safe activity. If people are cycling together in a safe place, it's probably the factors around it that make it more dangerous, I think.
Yeah, and you're mentioned there of, I suppose, you're seeing maybe more near misses or dangerous behaviour on wider roads. Is that because vehicles probably have more space to overtake, or think they have more space than they do have to overtake?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think like to look at, let's say, cycling infrastructure. Sometimes what cycling infrastructure will do is it will narrow the carriageway for people who are cycling and for people who are walking to have space. And it will also narrow the carriageway for people who are driving. And the effect of that will be it will slow down people who are driving to give them better braking times and better visibility of what's going on around them, because they're probably in an area where it's in all of our interests for more people to cycle and walk. Whereas if the road is wider, there's a feeling that I have more space to drive and I have more space to react. But actually, the quicker you go, the less time you have to react.
Yeah, and Paul Murphy, Clare County Council has just recently passed a motion calling for high-vis vests to be mandatory for cyclists and pedestrians at night, which I'm sure, many people will see as a common sense approach. But look, what are you hearing from constituents? Is there anything else you think is needed on the roads to make things safer, whether that be a road safety rules change or design change?
Look, and Pat Burke brought that notice of motion up there last month about the high visibility vest, and I can tell you, I was out walking my dog this morning on the fine sunny morning that it was, but I had my high vis vest on as well, because they certainly work, whether it's on a sunny balmy day like today or on a bad night. They do make the driver more aware of you coming as they approach you on the road. Look, I think nothing. I mean, you can't ever be doing enough to improve road safety. I think a lot of it, Sarah, and okay, I'm putting on my cycling hat here, albeit the leisure cyclist for the main part. Sometimes and this is not being critical of drivers, because I am one myself. I nearly knocked down a cyclist about 10 years ago. I learned a lot from it, but it can be a lack of awareness, just not expecting to see the cyclists. And I think particularly around the urban areas, we are getting more cyclists, just to be aware that that the car or the motorist isn't the only thing on the road, that there are other people there and that they are far more vulnerable, and adjust your speed accordingly. You'll get to your destination, and we all do have an entitlement to use the road. And okay, the pedestrian and the cyclist, they might be in the minority, but they still do have the same right as the motorist. It shouldn't be numbers based, just because there's more cars than bikes that gives the car more rights, and vice versa. It's to share the road. It's that approach that needs to be there. That we're all part of a community, and we all deserve to be safe, and we all deserve to respect we all should respect each other as well. Of that, there's no doubt anyway there.
And just quickly before we finish up, Ciarán, any policy change you'd like to see?
I'd probably like to see the acceleration of the 30 kilometre per hour speed zones. I think like a lot of us are going to go on our holidays in the summer, possibly to mainland Europe, and 30 kilometre per hour in urban areas is very common there. And there's a reason maybe why people feel safer crossing the road, or people feel safer cycling in some of those areas. So I'd really like to see an acceleration of that in the areas that need it.
Super. Well, that is Ciarán Tiernan from Better Ennis and Paul Murphy, Mayor of Clare, reacting to the latest RSA report that shows that 15 Clare cyclists were seriously injured in road traffic collisions between 2021 and 2025.